Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that most people never truly understand until it's too late. The voice inside your head is either your greatest ally or your most destructive enemy. It is the architect of your destiny or the assassin of your potential. You live with that voice 24 hours a day. It eats with you, walks with you, argues with you, puts you to bed and wakes you up. It's the one voice you can never escape, and yet, it's the one most people never learn how to control for 3 days, just 3 days. It's all I'm asking you to test. Talk to yourself like a warrior instead of a victim. Talk to yourself like a winner instead of a warrior. Because if you can change the tone of your inner dialogue for 3 consecutive days, you will begin to rewire the very neural architecture of your brain. That's not motivational fluff, that's neuroscience. So your brain is a chemical machine powered by electricity, emotion, and repetition. Every thought you think sends a pulse of energy through billions of synapses, creating pathways that determine how you interpret the world. Negative self-talk, the constant stream of I'm not enough, it's too hard, I always fail, people like me don't win. These are not harmless sentences floating in your mind. They're neurochemical events. Each one releases cortisol, the stress hormone, while simultaneously dampening the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, planning, and execution. You're literally chemically programming yourself to doubt, to freeze, to hesitate. Now imagine doing the opposite. Imagine replacing I can't with watch me. Replacing I'm tired with I'm unstoppable. Replacing this is too much with I was built for this. Do you know what happens when you talk to yourself that way? Your brain starts to release dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, the chemicals of focus, drive, and confidence. Your nervous system begins to synchronize with your intention. You become aligned, not fragmented. You move through life with certainty instead of fear. And here's the wild part. Your brain doesn't know the difference between truth and repetition. If you repeat something enough, good or bad, your subconscious accepts it as reality. That's how belief systems are formed. That's how habits take root. That's how destinies are shaped. You become what you consistently whisper to yourself when no one else is listening. I've worked with athletes, CEOs, and soldiers. People who've been trained to perform under impossible pressure. And they all share one habit. They are ruthless with their self-talk. A fighter pilot going into combat cannot afford to say, I hope I don't screw this up. A surgeon holding a scalpel over a patient's heart cannot whisper, please let me not make a mistake. Their inner dialogue has to be surgical, precise, commanding. It has to say, I've trained for this, I'm ready, let's execute. Because if that internal voice cracks, everything else collapses. You think your life is different. It's not. You may not be flying jets or operating on hearts, but every day you're making decisions that determine your future. Decisions about your health, your relationships, your finances, your dreams. And those decisions are driven not by logic alone, but by emotion, belief, and inner conversation. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your self-talk. Now let's be honest. Most people talk to themselves like they would never talk to a friend. You call yourself stupid, lazy, weak. You replay your mistakes like a highlight reel of failure. You doubt yourself before you even begin. And you wonder why you feel exhausted, anxious, and unmotivated. Your brain is listening, it's recording, it's obeying. You told it you're not capable, so it conserves energy, avoids risk, and sabotages opportunity. You programmed your mind for mediocrity. But the opposite is also true. The moment you start speaking powerfully to yourself, your physiology shifts, your posture changes, your breathing deepens, your hormones rebalance. Confidence isn't mystical, it's chemical. And the most potent trigger of that chemistry is your inner dialogue. That's why I say, give me 3 days of disciplined, deliberate, warrior-level self-talk, and I'll show you the first glimpse of who you could have been all along. I remember a story of a man, a corporate executive, who came to me after a breakdown. On paper, he had it all: wealth, a family, a beautiful house, but his mind was chaos. He said, every morning, I wake up, and the first thing I hear is my own voice saying, you're behind, you're losing, you're not enough. He was killing himself slowly with language. I told him, For 3 days, you are forbidden to say one negative word to yourself, not one. Instead, every time that voice attacks, you counterattack with absolute authority. He thought it was stupid. He said, you can't just talk yourself out of years of failure. I said, no, you can't, but you can talk yourself into a new pattern and the brain will follow. 3 days later, he called me. His tone had changed. He said, I feel like I've been carrying a 100-pound weight on my back and suddenly dropped it. The world hadn't changed. His company hadn't changed. His marriage hadn't magically healed. What changed was the energy flowing through his nervous system. His self-talk had flipped the switch from defense to offense. And when the mind goes on offense, life follows. That's the power I'm talking about. It's not about fake positivity. It's about precision. It's about commanding your own psychology instead of being enslaved by it. Positive thinking without discipline is delusion. But discipline, focused, relentless, self-instruction, that's transformation. Neuroscientists call it neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself through repetition and emotion. Every time you repeat a thought with conviction, you strengthen a neural pathway. Think of it like carving a groove into the circuitry of your mind. The more you run that mental track, the deeper it becomes. Eventually it becomes automatic, a habit of thought. And habits of thought become habits of action. So when I say, talk to yourself like this for just 3 days, I'm talking about initiating the rewiring process. You're conditioning your brain to associate power with your voice. You're teaching it that when you speak, you mean business. You're creating a new identity, one word at a time. Now, some of you might be thinking, but I've been negative for decades. I've been through trauma. I've failed too many times. Let me tell you something. Your brain doesn't care about your history. It cares about what you feed it today. Neuroplasticity doesn't have an expiration date. You can be 70 years old and still create new neural connections. The only thing that stops that process is inactivity and belief that you can't change. You are not your past, you are your pattern. And patterns can be rewritten. There was a study done at Stanford where they observed how people's self-talk affected their performance on cognitive tasks. They found that people who use language like, I'm learning, I'm getting better, I'm figuring this out, performed dramatically higher than those who said, I'm bad at this, I always mess this up. The difference wasn't skill, it was instruction. The brain responds to instruction like a soldier to a command. If you tell it to adapt, it adapts. If you tell it to quit, it quits. And this applies not only to mental performance, but also to physical health. Harvard researchers found that changing internal language can literally influence gene expression related to stress response and immune function. When you replace self-criticism with self-command, your body releases fewer stress hormones, your inflammation decreases, your immune system strengthens. You're not just thinking differently, you're healing differently. So when I say 3 days, I'm not asking for a lifetime commitment, I'm asking for an experiment. 3 days of radical mental discipline. No self-insults, no pity talk, no I can't. Every time you catch yourself slipping, you stop, out loud if you have to, and you replace it with a statement of power. Not affirmation, command. I've got this. I'm handling this. This is my moment. Do that long enough, and your subconscious will recalibrate your baseline energy from doubt to certainty. The first day will be war. You'll realize how often your mind tries to sabotage you. You'll hear the voice you've ignored for years, the critic, the cynic, the coward. But that's good. Awareness is the first step to mastery. You can't fix what you don't confront. By the second day, you'll start catching the negative thoughts before they finish forming. You'll interrupt them mid-sentence like a general shouting, "Stop!" before chaos spreads through the ranks. And by the third day, something miraculous begins to happen. Silence. The voice quiets. The noise fades. You feel space, clarity, strength. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the commander of them. That's the breakthrough. The day you stop identifying with your thoughts and start directing them, you take your life off autopilot. You stop reacting and start creating. Ladies and gentlemen, Everything you want in life is on the other side of the conversations you're having with yourself right now. Because the truth is, the way you talk to yourself determines the standard you hold for your life. It dictates what you tolerate, how you respond, how you recover, and how you rise. You can tell a lot about someone's future by listening to the way they speak when no one's around. Winners talk like commanders, losers talk like victims. And it's not arrogance, it's alignment. They understand that the brain follows the body, and the body follows the voice. You see, when you speak with conviction, your posture changes, your tone deepens, your presence expands. You start breathing with purpose, and that changes your biochemistry in real time. You're no longer whispering fear into your nervous system. You're programming courage. And courage is a chemical state that can be triggered through repetition, through words, through breath. Let's talk science for a second. When you speak out loud, your auditory cortex lights up. When those words are emotionally charged, whether positive or negative, your limbic system, particularly the amygdala, tags that memory as significant. That's why insults or praise stick with you for decades. The brain doesn't forget emotionally loaded language. So when you repeatedly say, I can, or I'm worthless, you're embedding emotional weight into those phrases. They become your truth because your nervous system accepted them as commands. But if you deliberately inject emotional power into positive language, if you say, I am unstoppable with force, if you say, I was built for this with conviction, if you look at yourself in the mirror and declare, I refuse to quit, you're doing the same thing in the opposite direction. You're reprogramming the emotional core of your brain. You're giving it new emotional evidence. And your mind, desperate to stay congruent with what you say, begins to adapt. That's why affirmations alone don't work. They lack emotion, precision, and belief. But self-command, spoken with certainty and backed by action, reshapes your entire inner landscape. I've seen it happen in rooms full of people who thought their lives were beyond repair. People who carried decades of trauma, addiction, regret. And yet, when they learned how to take command of their inner dialogue, something inside them ignited. I remember a woman who stood up during one of my seminars, tears in her eyes, and said, for 30 years, I've called myself broken. I looked her dead in the eye and said, and for 30 years, your brain has obeyed that command. What if, for the next 3 days, you called yourself whole? She did, 3 days. That's all it took for her to feel something she hadn't felt in decades. Peace. Because when you stop attacking yourself, your body stops defending itself. When you stop identifying as broken, healing becomes possible. The body listens to the mind. The mind listens to the words. The words shape the reality. There's a reason military leaders, surgeons, and elite athletes use verbal commands before execution. It focuses the brain. It cuts through chaos. It creates certainty. When a Navy SEAL says, breathe, focus, execute, he's not being poetic. He's engaging his autonomic nervous system. He's controlling his physiology through structured language. That's what you need to start doing. Give your mind commands that direct your biology toward performance, not paralysis. I want you to imagine your mind like a room filled with loud, undisciplined voices, the critic, the worrier, the procrastinator, the one that says you'll never make it. Most people just let them scream over each other. But the moment you walk into that room and speak with authority, enough, this is how we're doing it now, everything quiets. That's leadership. That's how you lead your own mind. And if you can't lead your own mind, don't expect to lead your life. Now, some people say, but isn't it lying to myself if I say I'm strong when I feel weak? No, it's not lying, it's leadership. You're not denying your weakness. You're directing your focus toward who you choose to become. The brain works through focus. Whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on weakness, you feed it. If you focus on strength, you grow it. You're not ignoring reality. You're shaping it. The words you choose to say are instructions for what your mind should build next. And here's something most people overlook. Self-talk isn't just what you say, it's how you say it. Tone matters. Energy matters. If you tell yourself, I can do this, in a hesitant whisper, your body hears doubt. But if you say it with presence, shoulders back, voice firm, eyes locked, your nervous system hears command. And command activates execution. This is why body language and self-talk are inseparable. You can't talk like a loser and stand like a winner. The two must align. For 3 days, I want you to observe yourself. Every time you catch your inner voice saying something weak, Correct it instantly. Say it out loud if you have to. Stop. That's not me anymore. And then replace it. I'm getting stronger. I'm taking control. I'm doing what it takes. Do this with intensity. Do it with emotion. You'll feel ridiculous at first because your old identity is fighting for survival. But if you persist, the old patterns will crumble. Your brain will adapt because it has no choice. It's built to adapt to the language you consistently feed it. And let's talk about something even deeper, identity. The most dangerous words in the human language are, I am. Because whatever follows, I am, becomes your instruction manual. I am tired. I am unlucky. I am not good enough. Those are identity statements, and your subconscious treats them like laws, but you can rewrite those laws. You can say, I am relentless. I am healing. I am learning fast. I am unstoppable. Those words don't just inspire, they instruct. You're not describing your life. You're designing it. One of the most profound things I've learned from neuroscience is that your brain doesn't live in the past or future, it lives in patterns. If the pattern is self-doubt, you'll recreate circumstances that confirm it. If the pattern is self-command, you'll attract opportunities that match it. The outer world reflects the inner one. So when you change your language, you're not just talking differently, you're changing the pattern your brain seeks to replicate. That's why, after 3 days of disciplined self-talk, life feels different. People respond differently. Energy flows differently because your pattern has shifted. Now, I want to share something very personal. Years ago, I went through one of the darkest periods of my life. I had built success, achieved milestones, but internally, I was drained. The voice in my head wasn't my ally anymore. It was a critic, constantly whispering, you're not doing enough. You're losing your edge. I started to believe it. Till one morning, I woke up, looked in the mirror, and realized something profound. I would never let another person talk to me the way I had been talking to myself. That was the day I drew the line. I spent 3 days, just 3, refusing to say one negative word to myself. Every time my mind threw a punch, I countered it with strength. Every time it doubted, I responded with command. No, I'm not losing it. I'm leveling up. I'm not failing. I'm refining. And by the 3rd day, it was like the fog had lifted. My focus returned. My energy surged. My vision sharpened. That's when I realized success isn't about doing more. It's about thinking differently. You see, discipline starts in your dialogue. Before you lift a weight, build a business, or chase a dream, it begins with words. Words are the seeds of action. The weak plant weeds. The strong plant forests. Your self-talk is the soil of your destiny. You either nourish it or poison it. Now let me warn you, the first 3 days will test you. You'll catch yourself mid-sentence, mid-thought, mid-doubt. That's the battlefield. But that's also the opportunity, because awareness means you're finally awake. Most people go through life hypnotized by their inner critic, never realizing they can speak back. They surrender to the noise. You're not going to do that anymore. You're going to become the voice of authority inside your own head. You're going to lead that internal army like a general commanding troops into battle, with clarity, certainty, and no hesitation. And when those negative thoughts come, and they will, you don't argue with them, you override them. You say, I hear you, but I don't serve you anymore. You shift your focus to execution, because self-talk without action is empty. But when words and action align, you become unstoppable. So, for 3 days, speak like a leader, move like one, think like one. Every morning when you wake up, before you touch your phone, before you check the world, talk to yourself out loud. Today I'm in charge. Today I'm unbreakable. Today I execute. And then live like it. The world will start responding to that energy. Opportunities will open up. People will notice, not because magic happened, but because your frequency changed. And the world always mirrors the frequency of your self-belief. And that's when it hits you. This was never about motivation. It was about mastery. Motivation is temporary. Mastery is a lifestyle. The people who win, who build legacies, who create impact, who inspire generations, they don't wait to feel confident. They speak confidence into existence. They use language as a tool of command. They talk to themselves like champions long before the world ever calls them one. You see, the world mirrors your internal dialogue. If you speak like a victim, it will treat you like one. If you speak like a conqueror, it will rise to meet your standard. The language you use with yourself sets the boundaries of what's possible. And the moment you understand that, life stops being random. It becomes responsive. You stop waiting for luck, you start building leverage. There's a reason some people seem to attract miracles while others attract misery. It's not the universe playing favorites, it's alignment. The people who win think and speak in alignment with what they want, not with what they fear. They command focus. They instruct their subconscious to find evidence of strength, not weakness. And over time, they become a living embodiment of those words. You've got to understand your subconscious mind is a servant, not a strategist. It doesn't analyze your words, it obeys them. You say, I'm so tired, it says, yes, sir, and your energy drops. You say, I'm unstoppable, and it releases adrenaline and dopamine to match. You tell it, I'm too scared, and it floods your body with cortisol. You tell it, I'm fearless, and it begins recalibrating your entire nervous system toward calm control. You're not a prisoner of your mind, you're the commander-in-chief of it, but you have to speak like one. That's why I want you to take those 3 days and treat them like sacred ground. From the moment you wake up to the moment you close your eyes, guard your self-talk with ferocity. You don't let a single weak word slip through. When your mind says, I can't, you answer, I can and I will. When it says, I'm not ready, you say, I'm getting stronger every second. When it says, this is impossible, you say, watch me make it possible. Do this relentlessly, do it like your life depends on it, because in a very real way, it does. Now let's talk about what happens after those 3 days. You'll notice something subtle, yet powerful. Your energy will change. Your decision-making will sharpen. The noise in your head will quiet down. You'll find yourself handling challenges that used to drain you almost effortlessly. That's not coincidence, it's chemistry. You've changed the input, so the output changes. The neurons that used to fire together for fear and doubt are now firing for confidence and action. The brain has rewired. You've built a new mental operating system, one based on command, not chaos. And here's where it gets interesting. People around you will feel it. They might not know what changed, but they'll sense it. You'll walk differently, speak differently, move differently, because when your self-talk becomes power, your presence becomes undeniable. You stop seeking validation because you've already given yourself the highest form of it, respect. You've learned to trust your own voice. There was a young athlete I once worked with, talented but constantly underperforming. Every game he'd choke under pressure. He told me, I just keep hearing my own voice saying, don't mess up. Don't mess up. I said, exactly. You're giving your brain the wrong orders. It's obeying your fear instead of your focus. I told him, for 3 days, every time you train, every time you step onto that field, you're gonna say one thing. I'm a finisher. Over and over, out loud, I'm a finisher. 3 days later, he called me after a championship game, his voice shaking. He said, I did it. I didn't think. I just acted. Every time I wanted to hesitate, I heard that voice in my head saying, I'm a finisher. And I finished. That's not luck. That's neuroprogramming. He changed the tape. And when you change the tape, you change the outcome. That's the same process you're about to start. You're going to become your own programmer. Every word you speak is a line of code. Every phrase is an instruction. So write code that serves you. Code that executes strength, clarity, and focus. The system obeys the command, so give it the right ones. And don't misunderstand me. This isn't about pretending everything's perfect. It's about speaking strength even in the storm. It's about refusing to surrender your inner dialogue to circumstance. Because life will hit you hard. It will test you. It will strip away your comfort, your certainty, your excuses. And in that moment, when no one's there to cheer you on, when the noise fades and the pain hits, there will be only one voice left, yours. And if that voice is trained to say, get up, you will. If it's trained to say, keep fighting, you will. If it's trained to say, I'm not done yet, you will find a way to rise again. That's the voice that builds empires. That's the voice that heals the broken. That's the voice that moves mountains. You know what the most dangerous sentence in the world is? That's just how I am. No, that's just how you've spoken to yourself long enough to believe it. You are not your patterns. You are not your programming. You are what you decide to reinforce. And 3 days is all it takes to prove that. You don't need a decade. You don't need therapy to start. You don't need anyone's permission. You need a decision and discipline. 3 days. That's it. 3 days of catching every negative word and replacing it with precision. 3 days of standing like a soldier, guarding the gates of your mind. 3 days of replacing weakness with certainty. By day 4, you won't want to go back, because you'll taste what self-respect actually feels like. You'll realize that your old language was poisoning you, and that power was always a sentence away. Let me tell you something. Your life changes the moment you stop asking for motivation and start demanding execution from yourself. Because when you speak power, you start to feel powerful. And when you feel powerful, you start to act powerful. And when you act powerful, your results follow. That's not magic. That's alignment between thought, emotion, and action. That's human performance in its purest form. So, starting tonight, here's what I want you to do. Before you sleep, talk to yourself. Out loud, say, I'm proud of myself for showing up today. I'm stronger than my excuses. I'm preparing for greatness. And in the morning, before you check your phone, before you check the world, command your mind again. Today I lead, today I win, today I execute. Do it for 3 days, morning and night. And watch what happens. Watch how your energy changes. Watch how problems seem smaller. Watch how opportunities appear. Because when your frequency rises, your future responds. And when that little voice of doubt tries to sneak back in, because it will, don't fight it. Smile. Because now you recognize it. You've exposed it. You can say, I see you, but you don't run the show anymore. You've taken your power back. The inner dialogue that once destroyed you now obeys you. Ladies and gentlemen, your mind was never your enemy. It was your untrained soldier. You just kept giving it bad orders, but from this moment forward, the orders change. You speak victory, you speak precision, you speak execution, you talk to yourself like a leader, not a follower. And the world will have no choice but to treat you accordingly. 3 days. That's all it takes to prove to yourself who you really are. Talk to yourself like this, with power, with conviction, with authority. And I promise you, the person you become in those 3 days will be unrecognizable to the one who started. Because when the voice in your head becomes unstoppable, so do you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how transformation begins. Not with luck, not with talent, not with opportunity, but with the decision to speak differently to yourself. The next time you look in the mirror, don't see who you've been. Speak to who you're becoming. Command your mind. Lead your life. And remember, your words build your world. So talk to yourself like the person who's already won. Because the truth is, you're not waiting for the future to arrive. You're speaking it into existence. And it all starts right now.